cancel culture, a type of activism that exists on social media that seeks to hold people accountable by withdrawing support and blocking whatever prospects one had at making it big. We have seen the impact with cases such as R. Kelly, who was found to have sexually violated a number of young girls throughout his career.
You are Kelly! You are Kelly!
An award-winning Kwaito star fallen from grace. Ndlovu is facing the music 3 years after raping his teenage relative at his Johannesburg home. He failed to fulfill the role of an uncle to his niece who had just lost her mother.
South Africans have fully embraced this phenomenon, and we have seen the likes of Kwaito artist Briggs, Stava, OK Malum Kuket, models like Bianca Skumbi and Oneida Cooper, also on the bitter end of the cancel culture.
Manana pleaded guilty to assaulting 3 women at a Johannesburg nightclub in August. His lawyer, Michael Motsuneng Bill, has asked that Manana be sentenced to 12 months imprisonment, wholly suspended for 5 years, on condition that he does not commit a similar offense during that period.
Cancel culture does not discriminate. You could post something from your corner office that offends the next person, and next thing you know, you are summoned to your boss office to account for what you've posted. Cancel culture has become the most debated concept recently, with some arguing that it should be cancelled merely because it disregards human imperfections and considers people immune to mistakes. But can we really deny its importance in holding sexual predators and racists accountable?
Dumelang la amogela mo Daily Thetha mo SABC 1 nakalina ke na Nicolette wa Gamashile ga re betšwa mkwa o shpakrish mapulaneng ene se se a re tshwareleng lona le leme la matsogo ke se se andiswa wa ga ke bashe ke re thetsela wa tuka mo Afrika borwa maabani wa maabani ko Twitter re le ra bona Thego M ba mo cancela live cash no deposit. Last week taking a fitileng le ra bona bonang le ena ba batla go mo cancela Nandima Dida batla go mo cancela le yena Somizi eupya ke iputsisa nna gore na yona cancel culture ke selo mang na wena o ditseng go gae wa itseba cancel culture gore ke eng ka yona kgwedi e ya baswa re kentsa shedi go ditlhogopoledišano tse di amang baswa so ra di butsisa gore na cancel culture ke selo mang eupya o ka gopola gore ka 2015 ne re na le mogatlo o bohlokwa kudu wa #MeToo ene re le ra o bona kwa yona industry ya boithabiso so Melody ke a go butsisa wena gore na o nagana gore that is where cancel culture is starting gone.
Yazi sis Nicolette angikho sure but ngicabanga ukuthi mhlawumbe iyona ngempela ngithi ngibingelele emakhaya komncane nakomdala ngigama umeledwa kaMiya ucwanini usibe uzizi umunja lo ngithi ke sesibuka ngempela ukwanda kwento esibiza nge-cancel culture kuyiyona into esibona esikhathini esiningi iphushwa abantu abasha on a platform esibiza i-social media lana bona ke bakwazi ukuthi bathi lona othe wathinta inhliziyo wangenza ngaphatheki kahle mhlawumbe usho into offend omunye umuntu uyena ke umuntu ugcina sesithi siyamukhansela kodwa abantu abaningi bagcina bangathembeli baphinde banyathi ukuthi hayi lento iphelela ku social media kodwa bangaboni ukuthi seyinokufika nasemsebenzini ithinte umsebenzi wakho njengoba sesibona ithinte abantu who are actors singers and nabanye abantu nje abayihlelele emakhaya
le go le bya le Melody ba bangwe ba nang mathatsi cancel culture e ba tswetsa pilo so we asking wena o leng gae gore na o nagana eng ka yona gopolo ya cancel culture because I'm just looking at it and I'm thinking you get cancelled but sometimes it does help you really ra bona ka yena Bianca Skumbi a krea mathatsi within the industry and finding herself being signed up for a modeling project so the question ke gore na cancel culture does it really work and what really is it re gopela gore o romele wona molaetsa wa gago go nomoro rena ya WhatsApp yona ke 072 316 1329 ge ona le airtime re tshwara wona ka mogala ka 011 339 1315 but for now e re theletša gore na wena o leng gae o reng
Sanibona lonke kwi-Daily Thetha igama lami ngoDumisa Mthatha from Richards Bay. Well, a cancel culture has gone a little bit too far. It has gone beyond its intended purpose and trendiswa abantu abathanda abantu abathanda ukubukwa over other people's mistakes and they tend to forget which we are all human beings and we are all bound to make mistakes and therefore trendisa umuntu ngendlela wrong on a social media. Why don't you deal with no muntu in accordance. There are so many channels in South Africa that you can actually use for someone who have done you wrong rather than exposing them on media. It needs to stop. Thank you.
King Solomon here. Good day to everyone on Daily Thetha. So cancel culture is the public's way, of course, thanks to social media, right, of saying we are not stupid. Like, we're tired of one-way talking from companies doing us trash. So if a company makes a racist slur, remember when a company is pro or is anti-racism, we should support them on social media. So cancel culture is a thing. It works sometimes, it doesn't. In a case where it doesn't work, how many times have we complained about Eskom, but we can't cancel them because they're the main electricity provider or the only electricity provider in the country. So, yeah.
Ngiyajabula umfowethu la uyachaza ngempela ukuthi kwabanye yasebenza kwabanye ayisebenzi i-cancel culture. Kodwa lokho ukuthi ngibuke kancane umlezo ongena kuPriscilla wakando uthi I think cancel culture is a bit too harsh. People are sometimes mistaken. It is a normal human error. We think we should not crucify them that much. Ngithi ngibuke izathu zabanye abantu who have been cancelled. Sibuka abanye, it was due to a fact that abanye, it was a rape case that they were being alleged. Kune list eyaphuma and certain people were been then told ukuthi because when I went to even though we are not proven guilty or not guilty, ngoba bathe uyenzile cancel culture. Abanye kwakuyiphuza ngempela wayibhala ana 14-year-old just like a Bianca was told sekuthiwa cha isisi wena siyacancela into wayisho 10 years ago.
And I think also twenze uyibuthishe wena as umuntu olengayo gore na yona cancel culture, is it a new court of public opinion?
Yeah.
Because re ka lebelela gang ya for instance Bonang kapa Somizi kapa Nandi Madida, it was based on dilo tse ba di boletseng bona. Ke di personal opinions tsa bona. So are we then saying gore if I ke dumelishane le wena Melody on what you say, do I then need to cancel you?
Na khona futhi ubani ocancelayo? Ubani principal wele cancel culture lesi eqala ikhula kanje eSouth Africa? And maybe bakuthiwa isicancele ngephutha, ubani obuya athi cha besenze iphutha.
Ro cancela Bianca phutha. Re wetse something ra go cancela, of course. Now I think personally in my own opinion, baka cancela nna, I would need to then apologize because at the end of the day khona le ba uba offendileng. You get what I'm saying?
Ngiyakuthola. And okubuhlungu ukuthi osaziwayo esikhathini esiningi ibona abantu abashayeka kakhulu when it comes to being cancelled, because from international waters uzisibuye la ekhaya sibaningi sibabonile abathintekile and the way indlela abaphila ngayo has been also affected. Kodwa besibuya, we are going to speak to usisi bambiza ngoRote Marshall ozosixoxela kangcono in terms of how does this cancel culture work. Besikhuluma ngayo kodwa besibuya. Sajabula ukuthi usahleli nathi la ku Daily Thetha on SABC 1 mbukelo sekhaya. Sithi sikhuluma ngento abayibiza nge-cancel culture nokuthi isebenza kanjani. Abantu abaningi sebethatha ukuyinyanza lento bathi cancel culture because bacabanga ukuthi nje hayi abantu nje ku Twitter bayikhulumelayo, not understanding ukuthi sesibonile most recently abantu abawosaziwayo who've actually lost endorsements, who've actually lost gigs. Abanye even they've lost amathuba ukuthi basebenze in certain places ngoba kunento bayisho, even more so namathuba. Sibona intokazi ebayibiza ngoWanida Cooper wangenela ke into babiza uMiss South Africa 2020. Wena bekangenele kwavela ama tweets akudala and avela asho izinto ezingajabulisi and kanjalo ithuba lakhe lalahleka. Kodwa thina ke njenge Daily Thetha sithola ithuba ukuthi sikhulume naye siza ukuthi yena uzizwa kanjani.
I am the owner of Cooper's Aquatics, which is a swimming school, and the founder of Making Waves Together South Africa, which is a skills development non-profit organization that teaches children from underprivileged communities how to swim. I think the way in which we can approach issues in society is in varying ways. I mean, one is to bring light to a lot of these issues, but there's ways in which you do that. We can't victimize. You know, a lot of times we call people out, but we don't realize that when we call people out, we are equally as guilty of something by calling them out. I mean, I was victim of cancel culture, but in people calling me out to say I'm a racist because they took things out of context, they were being racist towards me. And so we're very very quick to call people out on being racist, but we can't see when we are being racist, or we can't see when we are being bullies. We come from a past where we as people of color were labeled, and now we as people of color are doing the labeling, you know? So we're not acknowledging the fact that we come from a very painful past, and we sometimes fail to recognize that pain still lives today. You know, if we all go on in society where we have a lot of things we maybe regret saying at the time, where people take offense maybe later on, where the initial instant didn't spark any effect, you know? And I think it's very unfortunate that people do take offense to a lot of things that we shouldn't take offense to. But I always say, mutu ki mutu, abantu babang. So I am human because you are. And in order to be a good citizen in society, we need to be kinder to one another. We need to understand that we come from a very painful past, but we've allowed ourselves to grow. And if our country can grow and grow through the hurt that we've been through and rise above that, then we as individuals can also change. People have the right to say what they feel offended by, maybe they feel infringed by. So I think it's hard to say that or say whether or not something is justifiable, because people take offense to things that spark something within them. So for me to say you taking offense to something that you saw as racist, homophobic, insensitive to any sort of minority group would be unfair of me, because that's your position and that's what you stand for. But I think when it's not justifiable is when it's taken out of context, when we don't look at context behind it, who the conversation was with, what the conversation was about, the root of the conversation, and whether anyone within that conversation took offense first and foremost. I think that's when we can say whether or not it's justifiable.
Ai la mo kwa sesi wa Nida Cooper a rotsa re keng nna ke feel nkare ne le ntlhasela fela. This cancel culture, sometimes it is not justified. Now of course ga se bo R Kelly fela, ga se bo Bricks fela, o mongwe o tumileng ke ena sesi Zoto wa bantu a ikrea le ena ole on the wrong side of cancel culture. E re theeletse gore yena o reng?
Hi everyone, Zoto bantu Zoto wenu Daily Thetha. No one should be cancelled. We are all given an opportunity to express ourselves. It's a free country. The cancel culture, no. We are debating, we talk about everything, we have different views. We should accept each other's views as they are. No one must cancel the other. Let's talk, let's try to understand, let's help one another. No cancellation, no cancellation.
Usizodwa uthi no cancellation njobasho kanjalo kwenza ukuthi ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi how do people in the media space feel about it, and ngiyajabula ukuthi namhlanje kuseni sithole ithuba ukuthi sikhulume of course no Rode Marshall, who is the managing editor there at iCity Press. Mhlamba ke sibonise ukuthi njengeintatheli bona bayibona kanjani. Rode, welcome to Daily Thetha this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Rode, I mean, let's get into this whole thing that we call cancel culture. In your understanding, what is it for you?
Well, for me, over the past couple of years, we've seen an increase of a brand of online activism called cancel culture, or some might call it outrage culture, which takes user outrage and converts it into large-scale rejection of someone, and mostly a celebrity's work or product or their place in pop culture. For me, cancel culture has become very, very important because it means that we're holding each other and people in society accountable. The problem that has come from cancel culture is that it's become a dysfunctional space where it's allowed for, where instead we become bullies, and the conversation doesn't go beyond being angry. And that's where cancel culture and the seriousness of it has lost its gravitas.
And perhaps, Rode, then we need to ask Putisho ya gore na, at what point do we then differentiate between remutu bamo cancela, if there's a cancel culture, there is social media bullying, but also having a constructive conversation so that a person can rectify?
So that is exactly it, is that when we're talking about people who are homophobic, transphobic, racist, people who are rapists, those are people that should absolutely be held accountable. Those are people where cancel culture has been like, you shouldn't be making money because you are a dysfunction to society. That is what cancel culture is called for, is that we do not owe you anything. And a lot of people have felt like example, R. Kelly has been like, but you're stopping me from providing for my family.
Yeah.
But also you are also responsible for having destroyed the lives of young girls.
Yeah.
So your appeal to me does not relate. But then at the same time, if somebody can actually prove that they have taken the steps to rehabilitate and to become part of society and take responsibility for what they have done wrong, then as people, we should be letting them in or giving them an opportunity to. That's what community is. But a lot of times, those who are held accountable for their actions don't see it as such. They see it as an, you owe me this, you owe me that, instead of them owing us the chance to see that they've changed.
Rode, I really believe so. An example, it's R. Kelly, Briggs, people who have inflicted some sort of abuse or assault on another body. Yes, we can say on a cancel culture. But what happens when mutu anali a differing opinion on certain things? For instance, we saw it happen with the likes of Bonang, where she said in a video, if you are 18 or 19 and you have not figured out what it is that you want to do with your life, you are not going to go anywhere. Of course, I'm paraphrasing. How then do we deal with cancel culture when it's a difference of opinion?
I think that what we also need to realize when it comes to subjects like that, where it's just opinion and debate, is that we all really hold each other to different disciplines and morals. Our morals are different.
Yeah.
And even when it comes to cancel culture, who I hold responsible is based on my morals and my personal beliefs. So if I don't have the same belief as Bonang with that subject, instead of debating her and saying what I feel, I'm either going to go then to bullying her or saying, let's cancel her. And that's the dysfunction of it, is that we also need to realize that we have difference of opinion. So you can't just cancel someone because you are disagreeing with what they say.
And maybe then makes me wonder is that what criteria are we using, criteria in order to say we are going to cancel you or you don't qualify to be cancelled?
And that's it, is that we need to actually put thought to these actions. Like there needs to be thought put into, why do I feel this way? Why am I upset about this thing? What is it that needs to change? And what am I doing by helping to change it? Because social media is a very small community if you compare to the rest of the country. Not the entire country is on social media. So we actually are like angry within this bubble. So outside of this bubble, what is happening? I can cancel OK Malam Phuket, but OK Malam Phuket is still doing shows outside of the people on social media who are canceling him, aren't listening to his music, and who are refusing to go to his shows. He, in small towns, in other places around, he's making money, he's living life. So we need to think about the bubble that we live in and how do we move the movement and the importance of the movement outside of that bubble. If we really want to make an impact, if we really want people to think about what that person is doing and how they should be held responsible. They should be held responsible. They should be held accountable. But we can't just be going around in this bubble angry without like some greater course of thought about what is it that we want to do to change society so that this doesn't happen again.
Road Marshal, thank you very, very much, managing editor at City Press.
Thank you.
We will be speaking to Road Marshal a bit later on in the show to just get a better understanding of and here's this interesting social media coming in from Mbali Wakazulu. Once you become a celebrity, people expect you to be flawless. It is so sad. We are all humans and we are bound to make mistakes. I think it is wrong for us to judge like that on social media. And so, should we be that harsh and that judgmental when it comes to cancelling people? Please rejoin after Papacho when we carry on the conversation ya Rona.
Welcome back to Daily Thetha. Siyajabula ukuthi nisase khona but nakhona futhi siyajabula ukuthi ku social media niyakwazi ukuthi niqhubeke nengxoxo yethu njengoba se studio nina nihlele emakhaya. Sithi ke sibuka ukuthi cancel culture does not live up to what we said to be given as the constitutional right ukuthi you are innocent till proven guilty, but also according to the Bill of Rights is section 35 3H assure you ukuthi you are innocent till proven guilty. And with that being said, you also have the right to a fair trial. Now, on social media, we are said to be guilty without being put on trial, without this facts, but also without actually having an opportunity to cancel.
Social media trial, public of opinion trial. Mang is going to go through it, and at some point, you're already seen as guilty. So how then does this make it easy or even more difficult? Your lawyer in a court. This is just public opinion. Let's take an example, for instance. South Africa, a molly in a glass ya somebody. Can we then say this person only potentially to become a sex offender? We've got another song where a person drinks. Drinks. So, does that make you guilty or does that make you a potential offender? And that's what we're talking about Daily Thetha, because they got cancelled for even just lyrics in their songs. We are having a conversation with Melusi Kulu, who is a managing director at Donda Attorneys, when it comes to cancel culture. And Tata Melusi, welcome to Daily Thetha.
Ngibingelele ku sis Nicolette and ngibingelele ku Mr. Mayor nababukeli on the show.
Ntate Kulu, here is a question. Re cancela. We decide that public opinion is cancelling you. How does that translate to the legal process?
Yeah. No, the thing is, cancel culture, it cannot replace the justice system. In the justice system, we say you are innocent until you are proven guilty. We Constitution, we have a section 35, subsection 3, paragraph H or T. There must be a presumption of innocence. Now, in cancel culture, there's no opportunity for the person who's accused to give his side of the story. What you hear is the side of the victim, which is important. It's important, especially in sexual assault cases, which we be awareness of such things. But also the side accused, then he can be found guilty if there's enough evidence. But what happens with the cancel culture is that you just hear one side and it's decided which are cancelled, and you don't have an opportunity as a person who's accused to bring your side of the story. And even if you do, no one is interested at that time.
So I want to as some sort of informal subdivision of the justice system.
Yes, I think we should look at it as something that can contribute.
Okay.
But not look at it as something that is a subdivision, because, I mean, at that point when there's a notion that someone must be cancelled. I mean, we've even seen this last year on Twitter where a person said she was raped by someone that is well known in South Africa.
Yeah.
And everyone then was like, that person must be cancelled, only for the person to write a letter to that particular person was saying she's a victim of rape. And then she stopped. And then there are defamation cases that can come out of this. So the cancel culture can assist to bring awareness of cases where it's true that that thing happened, but we must be careful not to believe it as a truth. once it comes, we must be first investigated so that we can look at both sides of the story for fairness and for justice.
Okay. Sithi sibuze mfokaqulu sithi ses understand ukuthi kunabantu vele njoba sesibashile ukuthi njoba usoshile ukuthi yena they've been found guilty emgaqweni igama lakhe they've torn apart, to be honest, and sebenza umuntu omubi. Are there legal ways to be able to assist them to rebuild their brand? Sibonile abaculi kakhulu eSouth Africa who've gone through this process.
Okay, there are several options akhona. I think the first one ngishilo mhlonisho le yokuthi ube nale case le civil case ukuthi wenze a defamation case.
Yeah.
Lapho wenzela ukuthi uthi lento ayishilo i-wrong and ube intentional uyipublishile and ilimaza i-integrity sakho noma isiqu sakho. So lapho ke wenzela ukuthi akukhokhele for ama-loss anzekile ngokuthi uqamba amanga. That is one of them. Okunye ongakwenza ungenza i-harassment order ukuthi ayeke ukupublisha izinto eyi-wrong ngawe. Also we can even take him to court for mawukuthi mhlawumbe kuney'nhlambe ey'khona even for criminal injury and so forth. So akhona ama-options to assist that. Even kwi-labor laws thola ukuthi uzoxoshwa. I remember, if not 3 weeks back or 4 weeks back, someone posted something abantu abangayithandi. Wonke umuntu wantu akakhansele batheka nebhodi asebenza ngaphansi kwayo i-profession yakhe. Angifuni ukusho exactly ukuthi ubani lo for my protection, but then kwase kudependa kwi-social media policy yecompany ayisebenzelayo. So uyabona ukuthi uma kwenzeka uqanjwe lamanga sekumele uxoshwe emsebenzini, so now umeli wakho sekumele aye kwa-CCMA so that you can get your job back. So there's a lot of avenues to look at if you are affected by such muscle cancelling.
Ntate Xulu, cancel culture in a real consequences. As you've already said, a chance gore ba go rake ko mmerekong. What happens with brand endorsements? Lera ba bona batho ba lose the brand endorsement. Then can the law force, if let's say it comes out at the end, gore actually you are not what people have said, because they go to anger very quickly and bring up things that but take the brands it's then the brands also react and they pull out their support for you. Can the court of law force the brands to reinstate those partnerships?
Yeah. So we can look at the social media policy of the brand first.
Okay.
And then if you are a celebrity or an artist who has the endorsement contract, make sure we contract clear should there be any issues with the brand, what will happen. But you can also take the brand to court also to say they based their cancellation of the contract on something that didn't exist. You understand?
Okay.
And maybe they hurried the decision. Yeah, so I think that can be used, because you get to see artists, great artists, because someone made a thread on Twitter, and then he can't go to, or she or he or can't go to that particular concert or whatever project abazoyithola. And that is a loss of the Singwasak. Because the cancel culture, what cancel culture wants, they want to take away any form of power that you have. But if it's based on lies, is it fair? And it's not fair in that way.
And ngempela nje ukuthi wena Bhuqulu ukuthi it's not fair. Kwenze ngibuza ukuthi another part of it is that now njoba sithi kunama account that are not like active but ayinagama, ayinasibongo, ayinalutho, it's maybe even a fake account. How far can izinto esifana njengabo Twitter nabo Facebook bakusiza ukuthi mhlambe si investigate icala elifana naleli?
Yeah. I think kumele uthintane nama headquarters akhona, possibly like Twitter. For example, I think last year there was a number of survivors groups that were formed out of Twitter. And then what happened was you understand? So it's better to khulume Twitter directly or Facebook to say, can you give me information so that you can deal with the person directly in court.
Tate Xulu, one last question. Really rabali story sa Waneda Cooper, ali masibotsana keneleng Miss South Africa, and people then dug up the tweets tsa gagwe tse ela di romela asale munyane. How do we deal with that? Do we say it's fair the way cancel culture treated her, or do we actually need to hold her accountable for some of those tweets at a legal level?
Yeah. Let's look at the racial part first. Ne?
Yes.
On the racial part, we have a Human Rights Commission. They deal with racial issues, and if there's a complaint, they investigate, take some time, and then they will follow up with the punishment. We know a case Gaspero. We know the recent case of the woman who said, okay, wait a number of times. So that's the justice part that we know. Now, on the cancel culture media, social media, you have to look at the social media policy of that particular body. Miss SA Pageant, they did say when this thing happened, they say they will take a stand against people abang pageant, abafuna by Miss SA, if they have any racial or prejudicial statements that they make. So it's based on the social media. I think maybe it's sad what happened to her, and she was young. Maybe people are saying that, but at the end of the day, we're coming from a history of a painful apartheid era, and any form of racism, it cannot be tolerated. And one wonders whether Kulma specifically about racism, is racism taught? So
yeah.
It looks sad, but again, the interesting part about it, Thetha to cancel, I think someone from London was asking about her name, and she probably got a deal from overseas. I don't know.
Hey, my
So
daughter.
it depends on whose side you are on.
Yeah, definitely.
And nakhona kube ngazukuthi bekudlalwa akuzange kwenzakala lutho. Mfoka Xulu usithi sibonga kakhulu isikhathi sakho la ku Daily Thetha. Sijabula ukuthi ukwazile ukuthi ube nathi.
Yebo.
Besibuya after the ad break, we also look into a bit, Nicolette, into a lot has been said. But right now we need to understand that is there a way forward. Khona okuthize esingakufunda ngalokho kodwa so behleli also still with Rodney Marshall nakhona futhi uFilm phela nayo khona besibuya. It is Daily Thetha la ku SABC 1 ke ekhaya of abantu abasha, ekhaya of the youth njengoba sisase kuyona inyanga yabantu abasha. Now sakhuluma kancane about the cancel culture kodwa hayi lokho kodwa sesibuka ukuthi the toxicity le khona with young people when it comes to cancel culture because kulula ukukhuluma ku Twitter kuluma uthi manje nje uphawule ngento ecabangayo wena kodwa nakhona futhi when do we account as abantu aba Twitter ukuthi cha benginephutha bengwrong ahlelanga kuphela nawe ekhaya hleli nakhona with of course uRodney Marshall who is the managing editor lapha ku City Press. Nakhona in studio we have uFilm phela who is a social media commentator. Awuhleza khona ke bekumnandi or entertainment with social entertainment commentator. Uhleza khona besixoxa ngezinto ezikanjena and siyajabula ukuthi nikhona. I think maybe to go back to Rodney. Rodney, I would love to understand when you speak about toxicity in the world of social media and cancel culture.
Well, I think that we also need to realize that even with what's happening around the world today is that everyone is dealing with whatever they're going through. The things that are posted on social media are triggering to a lot of people, and that means that it gets different reactions. And then you have, if somebody specifically, particularly a celebrity, triggers something that is traumatic for you, then you're having to fight with the person's fan. And fans are very difficult. If you look at how outrageous like the fights between AKA fan and a Casper fan get, it gets very personal and very brutal. So instead of having constructive conversations about the things that we're disagreeing on, it becomes this space of attacking and defending things, even if it's stuff that is absolutely wrong. When we're talking about sexual assault or rape, instead of discussing why are women being raped in South Africa, why aren't women safe, we have the default group of men who then go on, but what about that one woman who lied? So I think that the conversations then turn out to be so toxic and so dangerous, where it goes around in circle and it does absolutely nothing to fix things that are real social ills.
And I think also it's important for everybody and just understand some of the people they've been subjects of cancel culture and we do invite them, but sometimes they can't make it to the show. Now, Phil, of course, it's a cancel culture, cancel culture. And before I come back to you, I just want to quickly ask Rodney something. who are the people who seem to be able to not get cancelled? No matter what they do, South Africa, they don't get cancelled. What about those people is it that doesn't get them cancelled?
They're men. It's as simple as that. Men don't get cancelled. If you go and look at the amount of men that have been cancelled and that how many times they've been able to come back and still make money compared to women, and then also the reasons for them being cancelled, then I think that the answer is very, very clear.
Maybe I can bring in...
Proof, and there's no proof that those men have even changed or improved. It's just that society protects men.
Maybe we can bring Ufil in. Phil, I mean, as an entertainment person, like into zakulis, when I got to no cancel culture in that.
Because at its core, it's not rooted in anything real and anything that's going to change society in any way. Because here's the thing, when you go on social media, when there's a trending topic about somebody must fall or whatever, you will see tweets like, I don't care what Phil did. Just because Advocate Barry Roo says he must be cancelled, I'm jumping in. So that tells you that these people don't even know why they're cancelling people. So how are we gonna give credence to that when at its root it's not really rooted in anything that is helpful for the society or that is trying to change anything? The other thing that I always say to my industry friends or just people in general, people need to be aware that outrage on social media is very evanescent. In a simple way, it's a 24-hour cycle.
I was about to ask you, evanescent thinking, feel evanescent thinking.
So if you stay away from it, if you don't engage it, whatever it is that's happening is gonna die down when the new thing comes in. And for a lot of the time, that's like in 3 hours, 6 hours, or within 24 hours, they'll move on to somebody else. So don't engage it if you are involved in a mass fall, Nicolette mass fall, whatever. Don't engage in that. And the other thing is the issue of apology when cancel culture happens. In my opinion, I think people should not apologize on social media. Because what happens is that there is no way of apologizing the right way. Somebody will always...
It can never be enough.
Why is that? It's because at the core, the people don't really care about what you've done.
But Phil,
you're trending.
And I like what you're saying because often you give this advice, let the noise die down before we engage, right? Are we then disregarding the merits of cancel culture in cases like where there is sexual assault, where there's abuse, for instance? Do we disregard the merit that we get from it?
Look, there are two streets on social media, right? There's the streets that says, you know what, these are real issues that need to be tackled. This person has committed this. There's evidence that this person has committed this, and there's a perpetual sort of like behavior that we see. There's that. And then you've got this other street that tends to be more louder, that is more led by accounts from people who cannot be held accountable themselves because they're not putting their face out there, they're not putting their names out there. You understand? It's one thing if a Lebo Mashile or a Rodeo Marshall comes and says, Phil, I disagree with what you've done. Phil, I'm calling you out on that. Than somebody behind an account that is just an anonymous account coming in and say, yeah, Phil, so-and-so told me that you did this. And then we give that person credence. That is problematic because that person will never come back and apologize. A Rodeo Marshall or a Lebo Mashile, when they call you out, and then it turns out that what they were calling you out on was false, because they've put their name and whatever behind it, they're able to come back and say, guys, what I said about Phil, what I called Phil out on turned out to be not true. These are the facts. But an anonymous account that gets a lot of attention, they don't get to do that. They just So why are we giving them power?
So maybe Tingbuze, Rode, as newspapers, Siswanile Ama tabloids have printed stories, they've gone with headlines that have not been investigated, they ran with them for clickbait. Maybe, is that a trait of Uguba toxic from a journalism perspective?
Absolutely. I think tabloids by its nature is controversial. It's supposed to be controversial. And they do get away with it because people don't hold them accountable and don't hold them responsible. So we hope that it blows over. If for myself as a journalist, if a tabloid said certain things about me, I wouldn't just leave it. But I think that a lot of well-known people and celebrities just leave it and move on, and that's why tabloids are able to function, is because nobody holds them accountable.
And maybe perhaps I'd like to pose a Puchisho, should we then cancel culture? Should we put it away because of its toxicity?
Look, I think maybe taking it as that might be problematic, but holding people accountable is something that should be happening every day in our life. Do you know what I mean? Because especially with adults, I always say, everybody's entitled to your own opinion, but if you make your opinion public, that opinion is subject to other people interacting with it and questioning it and debating it. You understand? You can't just say that it's my opinion. You made it public. So if you make it public, people will need to engage with that. So I think at its core, cancel culture, like the #Me.To movement and all of these other movements, at their core, they are helpful. But like everything else in our society, they get abused.
Yes.
You know, and we should actually call out that abuse when we know that this person does not care about this movement, does not care about this issue. They're only using this moment for clout or whatever. Call them out, ask them out. Because when you see somebody not even informed about the topic that they're trying to cancel, and we just allow that person to lead the conversation, that is wrong. So it's incumbent on us as people who engage with these on these platforms, and social media platforms, to call out those things and say, when you say Phil Mpela is getting cancelled because he's accused of this, what evidence do you have? What more information can you provide, you know, to kind of like, you know, motivate what you say?
I think we'll come back to Rhodesia after the ad break, but just quickly, Phil, what types of groups have you seen balling at the forefront there on a cancel culture?
Stands, what we call stands. Stands are these like super fans of certain celebrities where they will excuse certain behavior from somebody that they like, but somebody else who is far removed from that, even that behavior, just a little thing, they will go onto that person. What does this tell you? They don't care about the issue.
Yes, but Phil, I think kubalekile ukuthi sizwe nasemakhaya ukuthi mina nithini. Ngicela nikhumbule ukuthi ngashayela ucingo right now on 0113391315. Sifuna ukuzwa ukuthi emakhaya nisizwa kanjani.
Let's go to Papajo.
Each and every person emhlabeni wenza iphutha besafunde kulo. Only if umuntu or inkampani leyo iyaxolisa. Mina angicabanga ukuthi khona inkinga ukuthi umuntu manga enze into offensive or esho into offensive bese kuzo withdraw support again. If lo muntu uyaxolisa or inkampani iyaxolisa, it's fine.
Njoba shumfowethu ukuthi if umuntu uyaxolisa ngempela kungani singamniki ithuba ukuthi naye simxolele. Ngisahleli nathi la ku Daily Thetha on SABC 1. Ukhumbule ukuthi uyathola ithuba ukuthi ukwazi ukubuka the whole segment, the whole show, any other show mhlawumbe oyiphuthile kule sonto simply by going to our Facebook page, alternatively ngasebenzisa our SABC education page ku YouTube. Now sahleli no Phil Mpela, who is an entertainment commentator but also sitting with a City Press managing editor, which is Urode Marshall. And before ngena kubona ngifuna ukufuna nje umlayezo phuma quickly kuNdiyebo Bulela uthi cancelling culture is evil, driven by jealous of people's successes. Sis man.
Yeah, very sis man. And I think it's also quite interesting for us sometimes gona le sehlopha sa batho se go cancelang. On the other side so gona sehlopha sa re support. As you've already said, there are the stands and then there are people that are just saying because I like Phil. Whoever is against Phil, Ramo cancel there and then. So it's that two sides of the coin, Phil.
Yeah, and the other thing that Rode said earlier about the fact that if there's no action behind this, then it's fruitless.
Yes.
Because cancel culture, it's fun for somebody to sit on a phone or whatever and say, I'm canceling Phil, right? Whatever Phil has done. Let me say I've done something horrible. But if you're still going to listen to my music, if you're still going to pay for what I'm doing, you're not canceling anything. Do you understand? So we need to get out of that thing. We think that social media is what defines, you know, how we hold people accountable. Because if we are not taking action outside of those spaces to actually show that we are not happy with what you're doing, then
But Phil, and perhaps maybe we'll bring in Rode into the conversation because you had made a mention of it earlier on in the episode, Rode, where you said we need to take it past social media. How do we do that? Because people on social, we always talk about how Facebook people are still going to come on Twitter, right? Or a story because they're a bit late to the party. How do we make sure we take it past Twitter?
Racism doesn't come from anywhere. Rapists don't come from anywhere. They come from our community. They come from our home. They're our family members. So, and the thing is, we so quickly turn a blind eye to it, and we leave it and we excuse it. So when we're making those changes within our immediate circle, is when society greater can change. So start, if there's that creepy uncle in the family, stop inviting that uncle and then hoping for the best at the family event. Have a serious family conversation and address that uncle or that brother or that person that makes everybody feel uncomfortable. Like, look inside your home, look inside your community and hold those people accountable. That's the greater effect of these things. At the moment, cancel culture is on social media and is holding celebrities and well-known people accountable. We're not holding the people around us accountable. And that's why the effect is not growing enough.
And mhlambe now looking at the reality ukuthi abantu awusaziwayo ibona balimala kakhulu, you'd find ukuthi it's easy to attack umculi, but it's not as easy to attack umawakho who you know he's guilty of the same thing. Now how do we then change online? Because I get online inkingi ila iqala khona. Thina as people with influence sishintsha kanjani, Phil?
By having honest conversations. I always say like if you work in a creative space in South Africa, okay, when you see somebody having a bad day on social media, don't laugh or whatever, because we are all just one tweet away.
That's true.
From falling into that trap. Because if we are not willing to say, okay, this person is being cancelled, for lack of a better term, because they did this, and I agree with the intention behind calling this person accountable. Like, for instance, let me give you an example. Like, for instance, a production company. If a production company is not paying its creatives, and somebody within that creative space comes and says, you guys are saying you're canceling this production company because it's doing wrong, I support that. It shouldn't be a personal thing. The problem comes in within our industry because people personalize these kind of things. You know what I mean? When I say, I don't agree with what Melody is doing in terms of being a creative or a producer, whatever, then Melody takes that personal, why now you don't want me to eat? Instead of saying, but Phil, why are you saying that? Do you understand? What can I change to make this better? So those kind of conversations need to happen, and it needs to happen in earnest. Otherwise, social media will be the one that drives the conversation. We need to hold each other accountable, whether it's privately or publicly. Publicly would be more ideal, but you know, when it's public, sometimes the conversation gets lost in the whole noise and whatever. But even privately, we need to be able to say, Nicolette, hey, what you guys are doing, especially with this kind of creatives and whatever, is not right. How do we fix that? Before me as Phil run to social media and do a post about the fact that this is happening within a production company, I should have had a conversation with somebody within that production company to say, how can we fix this? And I think for me, that's more of a solution than just saying we need to change social media, because you can't change social media. We're not Trump.
But perhaps maybe, and we've got a nice social media coming in from Tokolo Makoropo. Our good day, I think somehow this cancellation is not just fair to our beloved celebrities we've seen on TV or in our communities, as some of them haven't been proven guilty but judged inappropriately. So from Sitlogolo Samapula neng kwam TV di romahlala. What I want to understand, and because sometimes we get accused, especially Ronaldo shows on Daily Thetha, who are cancelled, a platform. Do we need then to relook at the way we cancel culture, that we do need to hear the person that is being cancelled out?
Exactly, guys, we cannot have kangaroo courts. They don't work in real life. They will not work on social media. People have the right to account and answer to what they're being accused of. The moment you remove that from the conversation or remove that from the situation, then it's a biased situation that has not solved the problem. So if somebody is being accused of something, platforms, especially with creatives, platforms like Daily Thetha are the perfect platform for them to come and account. As long as it's not a platform where they can just ponder whatever it is that they're doing. You do.
So what happened?
If you as the host are able to kind of hold that person and ask them the right questions, you are accused of this, is this true, is this not true, with this evidence, whatever, then it is a right platform. Where else are they supposed to go? Because they can't go on social media, because when they go on social media, then it exacerbates the whole situation, it becomes something else. Where are they supposed to go?
Cancel culture. Cancel. There are people today who are benefiting from this cancel culture. And we saw Mr. Kulu earlier mentioning that. In your opinion, does the media play a part in amplifying the progress in terms of the cancel culture?
In terms of progress, if you look at Jub came back like he never left. And there was no proof that he was rehabilitated. We all assume prison is a place of rehabilitation, but there was never proof that he was actually rehabilitated. And he came back with a big personality, and his career continued. So in terms of cancel culture, holding everyone accountable or affecting everyone the same is not true. It really depends who you are. Despite all of the accusations that were against Arthur Mafokate and even the court cases, he continued as per usual. While there was a rape case against Briggs was still working. So cancel culture, like, it depends who you are, and some people's careers continue, other people's careers get affected. And we've seen, and it can be proven, that men's careers continue because the court says you're innocent until proven guilty. But then also, who are these people that have made the law, and who is the law steered towards? And who is the people that are being held to be victims?
Sure,
and so the conversations around...
Rodé, she's literally opening this can of worms, because it is a conversation that needs to happen in society. But Phil, just quickly, because we've come to the end of the show, and Rodé, thank you very much for your time. I want to ask for an ordinary person, Twitter, social media, who doesn't have brand endorsements that we can take away so the pain can be felt immediately. Is it still effective?
It's not. You know, like Rodé say, if it does not happen within our communities, then it does. Like, cancel culture only works for celebrities, because then you can take away endorsements, then they cannot work, you know. But if it's just an ordinary person, we're just making noise. Unless something happens within that community, unless a court case is opened, unless there's some like legal, you know, repercussions. But generally, it just doesn't. And I mean, even when you look at celebrities, I mean, some of these celebrities are actually using cancel culture to benefit themselves. Like all these fights that you see on Twitter sometimes, they're not real fights.
Yes, because
it's
tomorrow
like
the song gets released.
You benefit at this stage, like and then I get more attention.
Thing is, cancel culture is enforced by these Twitter influencers that have large followings. I know this for a fact that some create a WhatsApp group chat whereby they agree to make some celebrity fall by creating a hashtag. Cancel culture works, and it's very real.
What is the WhatsApp group? Phil, social commentator and entertainment commentator. Sometimes say these WhatsApp groups because but Phil, last words in terms of cancel culture. Should it be something that we are maybe changing how it looks like?
Yeah. I think we should just change the culture in general. Okay. You know, the culture exists outside of social media. The culture exists within our communities and all of that. So if we are gonna say that we are a generation of holding people accountable, let's hold them accountable outside of these spaces as well.
Exactly. Rodé, before we let you go, Swami, when are your final parting words?
There's this saying that goes that we all enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought, and I think that we all need to really think about why we're cancelling someone, and then what do we want to change beyond that specific situation, because we're going to run into the same thing all the time. But if we're not thinking greater than that moment, then we're going to be cancelling every 5 seconds and then not making real changes.
Sivala kanjalo uhlelo lethu lamhlanje mbukele ekhaya. Sithi sibonge kakhulu ukuthi konke nikwazi ukuthi nibe part of lamhlanje, but also sithemba ukuthi nifundile ukuthi ubheka amagama akho, ubheke izinto ezishoyo on social media. Sithi sibonga kakhulu, sithi siyabonga wena mbukeli. Sibonge.
Shalangabutsi.